Hi there, Jesse here with eTrailer. Today we'll be taking a look at and I'll show you how to install the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty on our 2025 Acura MDX. If you're shopping around for brake controllers, you're probably seeing the standard ones that would just bolt down here, and with modern cars, they're getting smaller on the inside just with safety standards and all of that. So really, there's no option to mount a brake controller like that where you wouldn't be hitting it with your knee or your foot when you're driving around or getting in and out. So that's where the Tow-Pro stands out from other brake controllers. You'll see here, the only thing outside of beneath those panels is the controller here, which is really out of the way. You don't have to worry about kicking it, and it gives you a nice clean factory look. In order to get a brake controller like the Liberty installed on your MDX, you will need to also install something like the ETBC7, which we have here on our neighbor's vehicle, just because Acura doesn't include any factory wiring that you can just splice into or connect to. So the ETBC7 allows you to get those controls that you need to your brake controller. Here's everything that comes in your kit. You'll have the brake controller itself, which we have hidden behind the scuff panel, so you won't even see that once it's installed. This is the cable that connects the brake controller to your control knob. The control knob is the one thing that you'll see. It comes in a few pieces, but I'll show you how to get all that set up in the video. And another thing that you'll have to have in addition to the Tow-Pro is the Tow-Pro wiring harness. This just allows you to get all the wires from your vehicle wired in so that the brake controller can do its job. So as far as controlling the braking, you just have this knob here that's super easy to adjust. Really, once you have that set, you shouldn't have to do too much tinkering with it, as long as you're not changing out trailers and anything like that. And then if you are in a situation where you need to manually control the brakes, all you have to do is click in, and that will manually put pressure to the brakes. Anyways, if you're looking for a brake controller that's really going to retain the factory look on the inside of your vehicle, you can't go wrong with the Tow-Pro Liberty. As far as the install goes, it is a pretty lengthy process. You will have to install the ETBC7 in conjunction with it, like I said. So if it's not something that you're looking to do yourself, maybe you don't have the time, the space, or the tools to do so, then feel free to check out our dealer locator. However, if you are planning on doing this yourself, feel free to follow along and I'll show you how we set up ours. To install the ETBC7, you will have to have an existing 4-pole wiring, which with the MDX, yours is most likely installed like ours today. It's inside the vehicle. So that's the first step of this installation, is we need to get this outside the vehicle. So under the carpet here, there was this rubber grommet. That's going to be our access to the outside. But as you'll see, our 4-pole doesn't actually fit through that hole. So what I'll have to do is cut it here, and then I'll go underneath the vehicle, feed this back up through that hole and through the grommet, and then we'll have to butt connect all of these wires back together. So I fed our wires up through that hole, then I just kind of sliced up the grommet so that we can retain it. So I'm just going to slide our wires through here and reinstall it, and then we'll get these wires spliced back together. So I got most of my connections made, but I'll just show you how we're making connections, because most of the connections that we're making today will be essentially the same process. We're just stripping the end of our wire off, and then on the other end I've already stripped it and crimped it, but we'll just slide into our butt connector. Take your crimpers, give them a good squeeze, and once you're done, just give them a tug, make sure everything's nice and tight. Before we get started, I'll just go over our wires and what they do real quick. So our 4-pole plug here, that's going to plug into our factory 4-pole that we just ran outside the vehicle. Our blue wire, that's going to run to the front of the vehicle, that's our brake signal. Black wire will be ran to the front of the vehicle also, that's our 12-volt power. The yellow wire, that's for a reverse lockout, which we're not going to use if your trailer does have that, then of course you would use it, but we're just going to tuck it back here and tape it up. And then our white wire is ground. So that will be attached to a metal part of the body. And you'll see it comes with these butt connectors already installed. I'm actually going to take these off because what I will use instead, I'll take those off and then strip them, but what I'll use instead is these heat shrink butt connectors, which are available here at eTrailer. Just because these are going to be outside the vehicle, I like to have that nice tight seal against the wire so we don't have to worry about any water getting in there. Now we need to get a good mounting location for our 7-way and 4-pole. So as you see here, I had to get a universal bracket separately just because the kit comes with this bracket, but there wasn't really a good spot to secure that. So I had to get that universal bracket and make a few bends in it. Again, the MDX doesn't have a lot of options, as there is a spare tire that's supposed to be here. We have ours lowered down just to get a better view of everything. So just keep that in mind because it might interact with the back of your 7-way here. But now that we have this here, I have our 4-pole right here. It just kind of pushes in, and we'll have to plug in our 4-pole, which is coming from the car into our 4-pole that is on our ETBC7. These will just plug in, just make sure they're nice and tight. And then the dust cap we aren't going to use, so I'll just cut that. And then I'll run a few wraps of electrical tape around that to secure it, and also a zip tie to make sure it doesn't get unplugged. And then for our blue and our black wires, the kit comes with these 2 wires sheathed. So I'm going to go ahead and connect our black wire to the black, and then our blue will connect to the white wire, and then I'll run that up to the front of the vehicle. I found a good place for our ground. I just drilled a hole. This is 2 layers of metal here, so it's pretty thick. So I had to drill first, and then I self-tapped our ring terminal there. If you're not comfortable drilling through that metal, then I would recommend extending that wire out and putting it somewhere else. But I'll just show you our routing for our wires going to the front. We're trying to stay away from any hotter moving parts. So you'll see I have to remember that there's a spare tire going here, so it's kind of tricky to get around the exhaust, but I just routed it up above our subframe here. I tied it up just to make sure it's not going to drop down on the axle. And then up above those brackets there, along the side of the gas tank here. And then I just tucked it up above this skid plate to where it finally comes out here. And from here, I'll just go up to the engine bay, run some airline tubing down, and then electrical tape the end of this to that and pull it up, and then we'll see you up there in the engine bay. Here's where we pulled our duplex wire up into the engine bay. The white wire we just separate from the black and send into the vehicle, the inside of the vehicle. And for our black wire, we have to use 2 circuit breakers for this. The kit comes with 3, but just depending on what brake controller you're using. Like today, we're obviously using the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty, so we need a 30 amp fuse. And the ETBC7 itself takes the 40 amp circuit breaker. So for that 40 amp, we just took our black wire that we fed up into the engine bay, cut it off there, added a ring terminal, the smaller ring terminal, connected it to the circuit breaker on the silver side, and then with the slack that I had off that, I ran it from the copper side, and then we will eventually plug it into the battery. We're just not making that connection quite yet. With our other circuit breaker, I took some slack and again ran it from copper to battery, and then the rest of my slack went to the silver and then went inside the vehicle with the white wire, and that's another one that we'll have to wire into our brake controller. It's going to be tough to see, but here's just an idea of how we got into the inside of the car with our wires. You'll see a rubber grommet back there. I just had to kind of stab a few holes in it with a flathead screwdriver like this, and then I used airline tubing to feed the wires into the inside. And that's going to come out behind some carpet, so you will have to peel back some of the carpeting on the inside just to find that rubber grommet there. But once you get it pulled in, just pull the rest of your slack out, and then we can start getting our wiring on the inside. Now, here on the inside of the vehicle, near the footwell, you'll see this blue plastic thing that's bracketed right above the brake pedal. That's our brake switch. So what I did is just turn that a quarter turn, and it should come out. And from there, I was able to test our wires to find where the cold side of the brake switch was. I just tested each wire and alternating pressing down on the brake switch and letting off, and that let me know which one was the cold side. So I cut that, that's the pink wire on our vehicle. I cut that and spliced the red wire from our REDARC wiring harness into that. Once I got that brake light signal sorted out and hooked up to the red wire here, I took our black wire that we ran from the engine bay and connected it to our black wire on our switch, and then the white wire connects to our blue wire on the switch. So the only wire that we have left here is the white one, which is a ground. So once I get some more panels out, I should be able to find some metal and put a ring terminal on that and ground that down. The next step will be to find a place to mount our control knob. There's not a lot of options with the MDX. You'll see I already took this panel onto the steering wheel off. It just pulls out. It's held on by tabs. That's all leather, so I don't really want to drill into that. So our best bet, I think, will be this kick panel down here, which I'll remove, and then we'll get to drilling our hole for that. When you're looking for a location, just make sure it's somewhere out of the way where you're not going to kick it when you're getting in and out of the vehicle, and also somewhere that your wires will reach. So I'll pull this out now, and then we'll bring it over to a workbench and start cutting the hole in it. It should just pull out. It's just held in by tabs, no screws or anything, so pop that out. I have a small drill bit just to drill a pilot hole right in the center of my mark. And then we'll step that up to a 3/8 drill bit. Now we'll take this plastic ring, kind of line it up with the hole, and take our nut. This is just going to be a template for our second hole. Push that in there, try to get it straight. Now I'll take a hose pick and just make a mark there and pop that back out, and I'll drill a small hole for the light. Once we have our holes drilled out, we'll just put the nut and the plastic back in place. Slide your knob back there, and then with a 12mm socket, we'll just tighten that nut down. Just be careful because you'll feel a little resistance, so it'll be easy to cross thread. It doesn't need to be super tight, but just enough so it'll stay steady and you'll be able to turn your control. Once that's there, I like to put our knob on, and then we'll have to tighten it a little more because you'll want to be able to push this in order to control the manual braking. So tighten that down more and we should be able to push it down. So I got all my wires up out of the way. You just want to make sure you're not interfering with the steering linkage or either the pedals. So I just followed one of the wiring harnesses. That's a safe bet always. And for mounting our brake controller, I put some double-sided tape on it. I found a nice clean flat spot There's a small computer back here that I'll show you later. That's where I'm going to mount it, but first I'm going to plug in our cord that connects our controller to our knob. I'm going to use the right angle one just going to make it easier to keep the wire out of our way so we don't kick it. And I'll peel off the other side of my tape. Then I'll plug it into our wiring harness and get it stuck on. For our ground wire, I just routed it up, again, out of the way so we won't kick it or anything. And there's a nice factory ground right here that I'll connect to. So I'll just take a ring terminal and crimp it onto the end of this. And with a 10mm socket, I'll pop that bolt out and put that ring terminal in there. So slide it in with the rest of these grounds. And then tighten the bolt down. Now we'll take our cord, plug it into the back of our knob, push it till it clicks, and then we'll just reinstall this the same way it came off, or the opposite of how it came off. Make sure to tuck your wire up as you're doing so. Now we can make our connections to the battery up front. So with a 10mm socket, I'll remove this nut on our terminal. Once we have that nut off, we'll just slide our ring terminals over that post. We'll need both of them, and then we'll reinstall the nut. And once we have all of our panels back into place, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty on our 2025 Acura MDX.